I've been thinking deeply, why is it that many couples spend lots and lots of money on a wedding, on introduction, but then as soon as they go in a wedding, most of the time, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of pain, there is a lot of fighting, and it ends up, they have said that usually the average marriage lasts 8 years. So if people knew then what they know now, perhaps they wouldn't be borrowed so much money to enter into marriage, which is going to bring a lot of pain, a lot of stress, and God forbid, sometimes it leaves women who are very disillusioned.
So I welcome you once again. And nice to meet you in person. We have had conversations online. And I understand from my friend in Texas, Charity, that you are a man of God. And she says to me, Salongo, we have a lot of content going out to the community about so many things, but a little bit less about our faith, our God. And that's why me and you are having this conversation today. Let me ask you to introduce yourself so that those who will be watching get to know who you are.
Yes, thank you, Robert.
Yes.
My name is Elvis Muhaabwa. I was born in Uganda, and I moved down here during Reagan's time, during Reagan's administration. And when I came, I was going to further my education in Minnesota. Then after Minnesota, I went to Virginia State. Then from there, in 1990, I moved into South Carolina. I'm married. I got married during Idi Amin's reign many years ago, those troubled time. And perhaps sometime later, during this conversation, which we are going to start, I'll be sharing a little bit more. But basically, that's part of what I am. Down here, I've been involved in one church which we joined over 23 or so years ago. It was about 700 members, and to grow up to over 15,000. My wife and I were senior elders, care pastors. So I've been involved in ministry for a long time, dealing with many people.
And where you are? South Carolina?
Right now, we live in Greenville, South Carolina, and we've been living down here since 1990.
And you have been married for a very long time.
Yes, during Idi Amin's time.
Since Idi Amin's time.
Yes.
So tell us about your marriage experience. How do you manage to stay married for that long? These days, it was almost impossible, if I may use that word. It appears we are challenged these days, these times. We are challenged.
Yes, I think that's why we are here. I think I have been having conversations with Charity. She had asked me to do this. I resisted. I prayed. I thought when I shared with my wife what Charity had said, she said, "Why not?" I thought she was going to say, "No, you don't need to do it," but she said, "Why not?" So hopefully,
thank be to God,
over some time, she will be part of this.
All right.
But so it's as we discuss, I'll be bringing some nuggets either of my experience or the experiences of different people. But this being our first meeting, our conversation between you and me, I've been thinking deeply, why is it that many couples spend lots and lots of money on a wedding, on introduction, but then as soon as they go in a wedding, most of the time, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of pain, there is a lot of fighting, and it ends up, they have said that usually the average marriage lasts 8 years. So if people knew then what they know now, perhaps they wouldn't be borrowed so much money to enter into marriage, which is going to bring a lot of pain, a lot of stress, and God forbid, sometimes it leaves women who are very disillusioned. But this maybe first two meetings we are going to have, we are going to focus on two people.
Okay.
The children will be another time, because once the children come in, it's a different dynamic.
Okay.
So in this conversation, I want to look at some things which we normally overlook. Look things like, why is it that in this time and age, marriages are attacked? The attack comes sometimes from within and sometimes comes from outside. Another question which comes up many times, why is it that religious leaders' children tend to be in more trouble than other kids in the community or even in churches or in schools? Or why is it that you find today when, for example, a lady wants to get married, if she has been raised by an abusive father, she tends to marry an abusive husband? Or if the father has been alcoholic, usually such women tend to marry alcoholic husbands.
Okay.
And as we notice today, Robert, we know that many young people, like in the marriage age, they don't want to get married, and they don't want even to have children, both male and female. Why is that? Furthermore, why is it that whenever immigrants come here, when they get children here, most of the time there's a lot of conflict in the home and there's a lot of stability, which ends up creating a lot of problems? So we'll talk about those things and see how we can, the more information we get in marriage, the more we can be able to know how to deal with what marriage is all about. Usually when somebody comes to me saying that they want to get married as young people, the first question is, do they have a job? And usually, if somebody has been in and out of a job, if they are not steady, that's a hint that there is something wrong. Also, in this time and age, we look at their credit report. The reason why people look at credit report is because they want to see their habits. Where do they spend their money? And are they able to pay their bills? Do they have enough discipline to do that? Because if they don't do that, you don't want to be involved in that person. Also, there are some, for example, if they have a lot of debt, maybe that's not a person for you, because you're not marrying just that person, but you're also marrying their debt. So you look at their credit report, and I have been in situations, for example, where even people look at their criminal report. For example, if somebody came from Oregon and they live here in South Carolina, it's about maybe 5,000 miles, and they're here by themselves, there could be a reason. Maybe they are running away from something which we do not know. So we look at those and other negative things. Let's say if somebody has been married before, perhaps we need to look at their ex. Why did they leave marriage at that time? Did they leave marriage because of the problems, maybe womanizing, maybe because they had other issues, abusive issues, verbal issues, physical issues? So we need to look at those things. But today, I'm not going to look at that. Today, I want to look at something, what some people call social differences, which we normally overlook. And if we can consider these issues, they will help us to understand how we go into marriage. The first thing I need to look at is, for example, if somebody was brought up in a home where there are so many children, when that person gets married, they are very easy to share. Sharing is not difficult, whether clothes, whether food, because they have learned to live with the simple, with the little stuff. So that's easy. But if one is the only child, what happens with that child? They don't want to share. They are going to be selfish. So if you're married from, you have many children, the other one is just single, there's a conflict right there. But it's a conflict which you may not know because it is in you. It's something you are exposed to without knowing whether it will affect you or not. Another thing which I see which affects people is, for example, if a lady or a girl has been brought up by many other sisters, those are the voices that girl has had for a long time. When she gets married, it'll be difficult for her to start listening to a man, do this, do that. So that is going to create a lot of conflict because they are not used to that kind of authority. It will take a lot of work to say, okay, I need to listen because this is important because I'm married. On the other hand, if you find a lady, for example, who has been born just with boys, that girl is able to resist, to fight, be a tomboy. She gets married, and then she has been carrying her own self. So she meets a man. This man is telling her what to do. She's going to talk man to man as if, because she doesn't understand the dynamics change, because once we are married, the roles do change. There is another issue which usually happens. For example, if one is being born in wealthy home, where money is not an issue, but you marry someone who they are very tight, they don't usually have a lot of money. When you get married, what happens is that dealing with money becomes a problem. Maybe you want to save, but the other one want to spend. Maybe you want to eat out, but the other one wants you to cook. So there has to be some understanding that it's because the way you are raised, once you start your own home, there are so many ways you have to learn to live together. Another thing which I've realized, Robert, is, for example, both of you definitely, if you are born again, you have to marry somebody who is born again because you cannot be unequally yoked. But you are not spiritually at the same level. You find that, for example, you like to go to pray long, or you like your devotions, or you like going to church more, but the other person may not like that. That also may create some problems. So that being the case, once you come in marriage, there is no wonder that marriages don't last long because the truths we have known before, which are no fault of ours, create conflict. And so a home which is supposed to bring peace and joy and harmony becomes a war zone. And that's why many people bail out of marriage. There is some good news that as of today, the divorce for first marriages has come down from 40 to 50%. They say that the second marriages are still at 60%. But still 50% is too long because there's no reason why you would spend so much money hoping to have somebody to carry on life together, and then after 8 years, by the way, those 8 years, some of them don't go well because marriage with wars becomes so tormenting. So we're going to discuss that as we know why. We'll be discussing issues how to communicate. We are going to discuss issues like how to deal with money. We are going to discuss with issues like if you have children, how do you deal with children? We're going to discuss about issues like time. How do you manage time? Some of us may be very, very, very good at keeping time, but our spouses may not care about time. So how do we reconcile that together? So we will discuss all that. One more nugget, perhaps as introduction, which I'll share, is recently they were saying that about 3.8 million couples, I'm talking here in the United States, have decided to live separately, but they are still married. So they get time to get together. And they do all that because they don't want to put their differences in
Yes.
the picture, you
Okay.
see, because they know they love each other, but they can't live with each other. But we can live each other. There are so many examples once we deal with the issue. So these baggages, which they call social differences, are so important to remember because once we know that, we are going to be able to reconcile and make our marriages happy and peaceful. Finally, I want to talk about one more thing. Usually, intercultural marriages, for example, people like in Uganda or in the West marrying people from the North, those marriages tend to be more lasting because I think at that time there's higher tolerance and also there is an extra effort to understand the other person because of the cultural differences. Because the other people we tend to take it for granted
If I
that we
take it for
speak the
granted.
same language, the same food. So life is very easy. By the time we think like that, conferences have come up and then we find we can't take it anymore. So
That's
do you have any other question? I don't know. I don't, it's about 15, 10 minutes.
yeah. I do. Uh, because money is one of
Well,
the big things, and we spending a lot of money first of all getting into the marriage. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that today. It looks like a lot of money is spent going into the
yes,
marriage.
yes. I can talk generally speaking. I don't think it is necessary to spend a lot of money. First of all, I realized, especially during my time, um, during Idi Amin's time, we didn't have enough money, but I still had over 600 people on my wedding. I had different people from Deliverance Church and McCaffrey Gospel Church coming to sing on my wedding. But when you have faith and you are faithful, God will provide. But I think they are excessively spending a lot of money, which they do not have. Some of them borrow to spend. I don't think it is a wise thing to do. And you would rather, if you had the money, by the way, they don't even have that money. They borrow the money or the people contribute that money. So it's not enough. I think we need to invest more in the marriage than spending that much money to for the wedding,
Yeah.
which for some they may not even last.
Fantastic. Now, I am very intrigued also by the statistic that you gave at the close there, which is that intermarriage, intercultural marriages, whether within Uganda or Uganda or even here in
Yes,
where you have mixed race marriages, that there's some chance there because of the effort. I'm very intrigued by that. I did not know that. I did
yes,
not know that, but very interesting. So I think I have. I'm now excited about what we're going to get into. Should we be breaking them down one piece at a time, right? So
yes,
that way we
yes,
make it into that. So we'll do
yes.
every episode, break it down piece by piece, piece by piece.
Yeah, so it's important to do that because we need to give the listeners time when they get it. Some of them might ask some questions,
Yeah.
and so we do some follow up. So when we get questions, we have one segment and we'll be able to answer those questions.
Yeah.
But every time we have a meeting, I'll have a scripture either at the beginning or at the end. And for now, I need to have one as we end.
Yeah.
And this is from the First Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. It reads, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." That means that even eating and drinking needs to be done for the glory of God. There is nothing to take lightly because in the kingdom of God, God is the center of everything we do.
Yeah, and that's a good one. That's a good way to end it. Okay, everything that we do, we need to be doing for the glory of God.
Absolutely.
Buli kimu kitukola tukikolere ku lwa Katonda. I mean, we can even translate a little bit if we can. You think you can translate that in your language, so that maybe somebody will pick that up? Because sometimes I think the translations help deliver the message.
Well, yeah, maybe some, not me.
Okay.
Sometimes njakwogera ko mu Luganda, but not now. Eventually, you can always do that. But because what we know is that these episodes are going to go very far.
Yeah.
There are very many marriages which are dysfunctional, which are in chaos,
Yeah.
and some of them is because they don't have the tools, and they don't have one to reach to help them solve their problems. I'll be sharing some of the um, achievements, some victories we have had, people really in distress, because there's sometimes one key for them to be together again and become joyful and have a peaceful marriage. But so we pray that it will be able to spread. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian, non-Christian, Islamic. There are so many people who need to hear this message, because we all need to be peaceful and to be joyful in our homes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I think this is great.